Welcome back, everybody. It's another beautiful fall day here in North Dakota. So I used it to my advantage. I removed the steering box assembly from the tractor in the yard here, brought it in the garage. I plugged the one through hole to keep the water out of this over the winter. It might be nice to have that inside. Work on that steering box over the winter if we need a little change of pace from transmission work, or if we're waiting on parts or whatever. So of course, if you remember, like the other one, you have to remove the cover off the box to get the two bolts that go through the box into the housing. Dig through the grease to find them. We got some farmer washer fixes going on here. So it should be interesting to see how wore out things are on that box. Probably about the same as the box from the tractor in the garage here. Both icky, greasy. And we got the one off the Parts Michigan tractor back home. So between the three boxes, hopefully we got enough good parts we can put together two for the two tractors, and I'm putting back together. I was using the old parts washer here, a few hours into that, taking the first layer of gunk off of the whole clutch assembly here, just so I can kind of see what I got. Of course, this will all come completely apart and be thoroughly cleaned and inspected and fixed. But first step was just getting the bulk of the junk clean. Same with, basically I took all the parts that I had left on the bench here from last winter, and I cleaned everything, first level clean, get all the major gunk off to see what we had to work with. Axle and assembly from the right hand side of the tractor. The left hand stuff is loosely in there already. That's the cover for that steering box down there. This is the cover I just removed. And the bolts. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Like I said, trying to get back into the swing of working on this stuff. Since our goal of last year was not met. I wanted to get this whole assembly back together and painted before this winter. Well, that did not happen. I didn't get a lot done this summer for various reasons. I planned on getting more done, but it just didn't happen. So here we are. So the goal for this winter, I'll lay it out now, is to get this 100% back together, done, and ready for paint, hopefully come springtime, is now the goal. And I think that's a realistic goal, because we got, whatever, 90% maybe of the transmission done. Of course, the last things to do are the hard things. We got to get new gears made for that reverse idler gear. But I have that project in the works, so to speak. And I talked with a person that will hopefully be able to help me with that. We have to get a new rear axle made, but that should be a relatively simple project. That just comes down to budget. It's not going to be a cheap thing to get a new piece made. But other than that, unless we find any other issues while putting the axles back together here, the pinion axles, we should have, I think, pretty much everything we need to finish this whole assembly. I rounded up some different felt for this. I don't know if I talked about that yet. I wasn't happy with how this felt was working. It was kind of like falling apart. So I found some what I think is better quality felt. We're going to give that a try. Hopefully that fixes that issue. I guess the only other thing we'll have to address is the main belt pulley shaft. We haven't figured out a good solution for that yet. So this winter we'll have to figure out a game plan for that and get that done. But then, yeah, I got the stuff to, it's kind of a recap video here because it's been a while since we actively worked on this project. I got the felt and rivets to do the backer plates for the final drives. That'll be a project for this winter. We could redo them, re-rivet them. We can get the final drives themselves cleaned up, inspected, and hopefully those will be good to go. Because then all that could get painted as well come springtime. And at that point, we'll have a very close to ready chassis. I mean, we could put the wheels back on at that point, and if we get the main front casting cleaned up, like we've talked before, well, then you put that back on and the front axle, and you're back to a rolling chassis again. So hopefully this winter will be very productive. I mean, there's a lot of little things we can work on to add things to this. Like I said, we can do steering boxes. If those are done, we can add them on and paint them come springtime. We could do firewall. I squirreled them away back here the other day when I was organizing a little bit, but we can get them cleaned up and done because those could go back on. We could do clutch levers and linkages, shaft there, all that could get done. Brake pulley stuff. We could rebuild brake bands, clean up pulleys, because that whole assembly could get done. Both of them actually could get done for both tractors. We could start redoing clutch shoes, relining them, cleaning them up. When we go through the clutch there, there's plenty of stuff to work on. That's never a problem with these kind of projects, because if you get held up with something or you can't work on, you're waiting on a part or whatever, you can always move on to the next thing. And as you guys know, I do a lot of that, a lot of bouncing around. Sometimes it's because you're waiting on parts, sometimes it's because you're sick of working on something. That's part of the reason I brought the steering box in. It might be a nice change of pace just to work on something else besides the transmission, like I started saying. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Well, we might as well get sidetracked here. So I put them up on a bench and I was cleaning out some of the big gunk out of them just to kind of inspect things and see what's going on. Well, then I grabbed the other one, stuck it up here next to it so I could compare them side by side, see if there was any differences, all that kind of fun stuff. I haven't really noticed anything significantly different. This one has a plug in the box where the shaft comes all the way through, where this one does not. I'm guessing that means this one is just missing, but just something to note. This one is the one from in the yard. It had all those farmer washers here to take up the slop, I suppose, between the box. That keeps your side-to-side play. This one, at least I don't think had any washers in it. But I noticed, see how that shaft is almost flush on that one, where this one is sticking out considerably. I'm not sure what exactly is going on there, which one is right, which one is wrong. Well, digging around, cleaning out the grease and gunk in this one, I found this square-headed set screw, jack bolt. I think that is to keep this gear onto the shaft, like this one, although that looks like a regular bolt, not a jack bolt. These are just initial observations. Obviously, we'll have to take everything and clean everything and take it apart and see what exactly is going on, but I just figured I would do a before I took it apart video, if nothing else to help me remember how to put it all back together. This one has the little safety lock wire, or what's left of it, still in place. That is to keep, this one's missing, that is to keep the little set screw here from moving. Probably to make some new ones of them, because I imagine this one will probably break, and like I said, that one is missing. I'm trying to remember how this all works. I'm guessing this is similar to like a 2035 steering box, at least like on my 27. From what I remember, you could take this apart somehow, and if it was spacers under here to adjust your backlash in this gear, in this shaft, to take up the slop in the shaft, in the box this way, I believe comes down to this part of the assembly. Like I said, that's been too many years, I don't remember exactly how it worked. I think in that situation there was a stack of shims between the box and here, if I'm remembering correctly, and that you adjusted those shims to take up the play. I could be wrong. And then I think this was just locked onto the shaft to keep this tight to that, maybe? I don't know. I could be wrong there. We'll figure it out when we get it all apart and studying the parts book. I think I might dive into disassembly here a little bit, if for no other reason than just to break it down to make it easier to squirrel the parts away for the winter here, because these are kind of big and bulky as they are. If I can at least get this shaft out of the box, then I can stick them up on the shelf or whatever, get them up out of the way. So maybe I'll see what I can get accomplished there a little bit. Looks like that's a pin with the cotter key, cotter pin. I'm guessing if I pull that out, then this gear, that's probably what's holding that gear to the shaft. And I might be able to pull the shaft out then? Is it as simple as that? Maybe? This is coming apart rather easy. Show you a little exploded view here. So, like I said, the pin comes out, cotter pin comes out. That is holding this gear onto this shaft from moving this way. It is also keyed on the shaft with a half moon key, which keeps that gear from spinning on the shaft. Okay. Somebody had put a little bit of a shim in the hole to take up slop there. Found that kind of interesting. So if you pull that pin, in theory the shaft will come out. I ended up removing the 3 bolts, so this cap would come off as well, and then the whole assembly came out as one, and then I pulled it apart. So either way, in theory, it should come apart. I was right, there's a series of shims underneath this piece up against the housing to take up your backlash from this gear, because that rides up against the face here, and that face rides against that face there. So that's your adjustment there for end-to-end play. The end of the shaft runs in this housing here. That is very much worn. It's not a big deal because this shaft is going to be remade anyway, because it's completely wore out where the steering shaft support rides. So that's all wore out. So most likely we'll just make a new shaft. I think that's probably the easiest solution. Otherwise you'd have to try to weld this up, turn it all back true. It'd probably be just as easy to start with a new piece, because all it is a hole, half moon key, and another hole up there for the cross pin for the steering wheel. Pretty simple part to make. Even we can make that. We'll take that to Dad's machine shop and put that on his list of things to do. That should be a fun project because we've never done a half moon key before. We'll have to get some tooling for that, but I'm pretty sure, well, I know there's no reason we can't do that now that we got a Bridgeport milling machine. We could set that up. It'd be kind of a fun project. This, like I said, had the little lock wire and the set screw to hold it in place. Surprisingly, I actually got that set screw to come out. Inside of this is what I believe is a leather seal. So that's basically sealing the top of your box. I can't get that to move yet, but I'm pretty sure that that will just slide off once I get it to move. If nothing else, we can sacrifice the shaft, cut it and drive it out or whatever, since we're going to make a new shaft anyway. So I think maybe I'll see if I can get these. I don't know, I'm not sure how to take this apart. I think the keys maybe come out first, and then I'm not sure if those are actually tapered like Gibb keys or if they're just straight ones or what. But see if I can get any of that to move, and then basically this box will be empty. We'll probably do the same with this one then, and then when we rebuild them, we'll do both at the same time. Like I said, depending on if we find any really worn parts, we can look at their gearbox from the Michigan Parts Tractor and potentially swap parts there if those are in better shape. Yeah, that collar was on there good. So I got the puller out, I had that hooked on, pulling on the end of the shaft, and it put up a fight until I got it to move a little bit, and then it slid off the rest of the way easy, but it was stuck on there pretty good. And it's not supposed to be a press fit, I don't think, but it was just all the rust and crust in between the two parts. Anyway, got that off. There's what's left of, pretty sure that's a leather seal that goes inside of it. That's what's sealed on top of the box. So all that'll be good once we clean that up and make a new seal. Like I said, pretty simple part, just a straight shaft. I got the pin out of the steering wheel. I made a little bit of an attempt to pull the steering wheel off the shaft, but we all know that's not going to happen. That thing hasn't been off since it left the factory. It's rusted solid. It's not worth taking the chance of breaking the hub in the process, the wheel in the process. So we'll bring that home. We'll cut it off. We will drill it out and sacrifice the shaft since we're going to do a new shaft anyway. So take care of that later. Moving on. I'm not having any luck getting these keys out to get the gear off so the arm can come out and then the box will be empty. I think I'm going to have to go look in the parts book, see if that gives any clues, if it tells me what kind of keys they are, but I'm assuming with that leg on there like that it's like a tapered Gibb key. Tried getting under there and prying. I actually broke the tip off of my one little bar here. Granted, that's probably just a China bar, but still, come on. So yeah, I might have to bring them home and let that be a dad project to see if he can get them out of there. He's got some more tricks, you know, for where he used to work. He has to deal with taking those apart too, so he knows some tricks to get them apart. I got a feeling that they're probably both kind of goobered up. These ones, the keys are clearly bent and mangled up where somebody was just wailing them in there, and so they might be a real bugger to get out of there. So those will probably be a project for another day. I'll probably try to take this box apart though, just like I did the other one. At least makes it easier to transport the box home. Maybe next time I get there, Christmas time or something, Dad and I can tackle trying to get them apart or something. Okay, since we're about as far as we can go with these boxes until we get these keys out, I moved on to other things today. I rounded up a few things and was up sandblasting some small parts today. We got clutch, fork, shaft assembly stuff cleaned up. The arm that goes on the shaft. We got the pin and levers and linkages for the clutch cleaned up for almost both tractors. This stuff is still on the tractor outside, but we got the arm and linkage cleaned up for the other tractor. We got both tractors worth of clutch access covers cleaned up. We'll have to make some felt seals. This is the drawbar piece that bolts on here. I'm just kind of focusing on stuff that can go back onto this assembly, if that makes any sense at all. I know you guys probably think I bounce around all over the place working on stuff, and that's true, I do. But sometimes you gotta switch things just to make life a little more enjoyable, working on something different for a while. These are the fittings that go in here that have either grease cups or grease fittings to grease your clutch fork shaft. So I'm not sure what's entirely correct for these. This tractor had these type of grease fitting. The one in the yard has the dot style twist on grease fitting. I'm pretty sure I was reading through the parts manual last night. I'm not sure if it was that or something else, called for grease cups. So I think this was kind of the switchover period. I'm not sure what they had from new, because I think some of this tractor is grease cups originally, like the wheels and stuff. I'm not sure if it all would have been that way or not. If I do grease fittings, I'll probably go with the dot style grease fittings, because I have a lot of those original ones, and I got the original gun for that, and it would be the correct time period. This mid-20s is when those were in use. So I think I'm gonna start dry fitting some of this stuff and see what other issues we can run into. I did, before I sandblasted them, I got all these parts disassembled and loose, chased all the threads on everything. One of those bolts, I believe we're going to have to make new. It's pretty wore out. Other than that, everything seemed to be in pretty good condition. Got the clutch control assembly all mocked up here, and just as expected, there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. So the key between the fork and the shaft is worn, and there's slop there. So we'll start with the new key. That should take up most of that play, I think. I think most of the wear is in the key itself. That's a pretty easy fix. Same story with the clutch arm to shaft. That key, this bolt is not tight yet. That key is worn, so there's play there. That one would probably be all right once you cinched up the bolt, but as long as we're at it, I'll put a new key in there too. That should fix things. There again, pretty easy fix. I'll just have to get some key stock for that. This fitting here is worn. I'll probably do like I did on the 612 and see if I can find a slightly bigger pin and ream everything out to take up the slop there. Is the easiest fix for those, because most of the play is in the holes, not the pin. So putting a new pin of the same size isn't going to really help much. To the back, and there again, as expected, this clutch handle to the pin, which is threaded into the housing, is very much worn. So I will see if I can get probably like an oil light bushing that we will drill out and put inside of the handle to take up that slop, because I think most of the play again is in the handle. between the two handles, this one's actually better. The other handle is actually more wore out. And this bolt, shoulder bolt here, like I was saying, needs to be remade as well. Reason being, let me show you what's going on here. So it's not just a regular bolt in there, it's a shoulder bolt. See if I can do this one-handed. So there's a step here that is supposed to, there. So that's supposed to seat up against the handle, and then your lock nut holds that bolt tight, and then there should be just a little bit of play side to side, so you're not actually tightening up on the end of the clutch rod when that's on there. The problem is both of these bolts are worn, and that shoulder has kind of been gone, I suppose, probably from running loose and getting wallowed out. So the hole's a little bit worn and the bolt's a little bit worn, so when you actually cinch up the bolt, it's actually pinching the rod. So the easiest solution there, kill two birds with one stone, make a new shoulder bolt. I'm assuming I'll probably have to make, I don't think I'm going to find one of them. New shoulder bolt. It'll take up the slop. We can also make this slightly oversized if necessary, so we have a better fit in the end of the rod to take up some of that play, which isn't terrible, but as long as we're at it. And we can also make it fit a little bit better in this hole as well if necessary. So yeah, that'll be the fix there. Relatively easy fix in the grand scheme of things. I'll send them project off to Swanson Machine Shop as well. See what kind of thing Dad could turn up. I think he kind of likes those little projects. Those are kind of fun projects there. They're not too crazy hard to tackle, but the satisfaction when it's all done, you go from an old wore out everything linkage to a nice crisp, like brand new linkage when you're done. And that's something that you want to, especially on like a clutch handle where you're using it all the time. Sure, would this function as is? Could I paint it and put it back together on this tractor like this and it would be perfectly fine and perfectly safe? Absolutely. But is it all sloppy and, to me, reflects poorly on the whole restoration when you have stuff like that. So that's why I do these things 100%. I want the tractor to be 100% when I'm done. All these little details add up when you're done, at least in my opinion. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about all that. Maybe I'm a little crazy, but so yeah, I think I'll probably start putting together a McMaster order here. Get a few things coming, some keys and possibly pins, and I'll have to see if Dad has stock for those bolts and whatnot. And then we'll start rebuilding stuff. And then while we're at it, if we need one, we'll do two of everything, because we're doing two tractors. So, alrighty, I think I'm gonna wrap this video up here. It's probably about long enough for now. I appreciate y'all watching. If you would hit the old thumbs up and like button, smash that subscribe button if you haven't done so. It doesn't cost you nothing. I'm not going to send you any emails or spam or nothing like that. It just helps the channel grow. And be sure to share this. Tell your friends about the channel if you like what you see. Tell your friends that might like this stuff too. Our subscriber numbers have not been growing very much lately, so it'd be nice to bump that up a little bit. So share if you would. Thank you. See you next week.